Welcome to Boxed and More, the podcast where shipping containers and modular structures become stunning homes, bold businesses, and big ideas. We're diving deep into the world of modular living, chatting with the trailblazers of the industry, architects, builders, entrepreneurs, and everyday dreamers making it happen or looking for advice. And here is your host, Lars Janowski.
Welcome to Boxed and More, my podcast about container structures, shipping containers, modular structures, and anything that is related to it. What do you think about the new intro? It's quite interesting what you can do with a little bit of AI and the help of the internet and some clever prompting. I'm quite happy with this, but as you know, I'm a complete amateur when it comes to this, so I'm trying to improve this episode by episode. Not necessarily the music. It took me an hour to get this, what I think, right. But in general, the podcast, it's a little bit more work than I initially thought. I thought you'd just, record a conversation and then that's it. But you would be surprised to see how many and the editing software identifies. You see, I said again, that's probably going to be, no, I'm not going to edit this out so you can see that it actually works. But it's quite a journey so far. And today is a special episode because it's the first episode that actually has another human being in the podcast. And big thanks to today's guest, who I will introduce in a minute, for taking the leap and actually talking to me. Etienne van Heusden is a gentleman from the Netherlands who's been in construction for over 30 years, not as a weekend hobbyist, but as a serious builder, and he calls himself a system and process optimizer. And a few years back, he founded Happy Building, a company based in the Netherlands with one very clear mission: making affordable housing, well, actually affordable again, using modular container-based construction. And as you know, I'm in that industry myself. We do get a lot of requests for container-based housing. And it's, good to talk to someone who's been doing it for much longer than I've been doing it. And so that's Etienne today. What makes Etienne interesting to me and why I wanted to get him onto the show is his obsession with the right insulation. And anyone thinking of building something with containers, specifically a box you want to live in, insulation is the main challenge, because you essentially have a closed box and it's made from steel. So from an energy insulation point of view, it's not necessarily the best start compared with other building solutions. And so there's a lot of discussion around this, and Etienne is one of the guys who's been researching in or with insulation from an internal perspective, so inside walls, and then external as well, with putting facades on that support specific insulation purposes. And which in his case makes a container home, well, we'll hear about it, nearly energy neutral. And obviously in today's energy market, that's a very different kind of a selling point. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Etienne van Heusden.
It's my pleasure.
Etienne, why don't we just start with a sort of a short introduction from yourself so that the listeners can understand a little bit who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Etienne van Heusden. I'm an entrepreneur now for probably all my whole life, 30 years. I'm 59 years old. I started my career in construction, in facade buildings. And from that time on, I was always busy with searching for systems. And in my whole life that I worked for other entrepreneurs, but myself, it was always itching. I thought I could do it also on my own. So for about 20 years ago, I started with my own bureau. This is project management, and I also build for people, private people, traditional homes, because then at that time it was not really in common that you would build otherwise than traditional.
Mhm.
But it always stayed in my head. So like 15 years ago, about 2005, I thought it was time to make a change in building constructions. And I got related to a German company that is called Containerwerk. And
Mhm.
they had innovative ways of insulating formal shipping containers.
Mhm.
And I took a visit there, and I got also around there in the factory. And I saw actually how they insulated their container shippings
Mhm.
and containers. And this is always something that stayed in my mind. I wasn't looking for a own factory with a lot of people to make sure I could also do this specific way of insulation,
Mhm.
because you need a really big plant for that. I didn't want that. I started to create a small factory of my own to develop, to make progress in the totally development of durable living in a formal shipping container.
Mhm.
This is something that for the government, they do this for students and for refugees.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
right.
I thought this is something for the new future, to live in a cube. And what is very interesting of that is when I could only engineer, modify, and insulate these boxes, then other people, private people,
Mhm.
mostly with two right hands, they could easily do their after building, because that is the discipline that takes a lot of money normally. And to make it cheap, to make a living cheaper, you could say, when I do all the construction, so that it's permitted to locate a building, people can do always the after works, the after disciplines, like carpenting, like
Mhm. Mhm.
this is nothing constructural, so the government wouldn't have any problem with that.
Mhm.
And you, as consumer, you can do it in your own time, in your own rhythm, and you could do it because it's modified. You could do it now and some parts in the future. You can always add. This is what
Sure.
was very important for me. And so, to make sure that everything I say is also physically correctly, I started to make my own house and make sure with every test that also every discipline that I would recommend is also durable.
So at what
So
point
this is how
at what point
happy building started.
mm, Etienne, when we'll come to happy building in a moment. I love the name. So at what point did you look at a shipping container and say, or made the decision to say, well, that's a good basis. That's something I can start building something with.
A container, and I was already interested at the time that I got familiar with these German manufacturer. A shipping container is not only a worldwide transport box. Constructively, it's better than every building. you can easily staple several shipping containers on another. So I would say 6, 7 storages are doable. Before on the zero ground, the first one will collapse. So they are extremely structural, good based. They are on road, on sea, on train. They are transportable. So transport is actually no issue if you keep your corner castings available. This was something that was really important, not overcladding the total. Keep your 4 corner postings, keep them always inside to connect with other boxes or to just do vertical transports, like you also see in a harbor. This was very important that this box was engineered this way that it easily could be taken as a basic box to do some prefabrication.
Maybe
And
for
the
those
environment,
listeners, you mentioned Containerwerk 1. I know the guys. It's Nico Sauerland and his partners and his team. You can if you go on the internet, they're rather successful now with their brand Tin Inn, which is the hotel that are based or being built from 40-foot containers, and they've been doing really, really well, which is what you refer to, the insulation, yes, in their factory. I think they started out looking at how can they sort of scale turning shipping containers into modular homes in the way you're saying this. What's fascinating about them, and I'm just saying this for the listeners, the guys have a little robot that does the inside insulation. So everything is sort of specced out. It's planned where the windows go, where the doors go, and then they start insulating with spray foam.
Yeah.
So just as an input. So Happy Building 3.0. Was there? Is that currently your company name? Or I know you have the website Happy Building.
This is also my company name. This is also my brand. So Happy Building stands for happiness. My slogan is always happiness starts here, right now. So people who are interested in building otherwise, I'm sure they will be happy from day one to the day that they will enter their living space. As you also mentioned with Containerwork was the basis. For me, it was very important because you mentioned it. They have a robot. So it took a lot of investment to create a possibility to make the installation worthwhile. I said, how can I do this by hand? So the idea of insulating on the inside was familiar, and I was not confused, but I was sure that this would be the right way for insulating a box, because everyone says insulation needs to be done on the outside physically, but you can do it also on the inside if you know what you are doing. They have a robot. I said, when I take some materials, like for example, a rigid foam plate, when I use materials that are you can buy in every store. And what if you can insulate by hand?
What do you mean?
By hand is that you don't need any robot.
Of course, yeah, sure.
To do exactly the same result, getting the same result as, for example, Containerwerk does, because Containerwerk is a firm that made a lot of investment from 2017. They are still very young, but nowadays they mainly only do insulation for the whole world. This is a part of the total, And this is their business model, insulating. And my model is actually to make sure that people can start from a formal shipping container with its own quality to a livable house.
So let me ask you, what's your preference? So we do insulation mainly inside as well, and there is, like, let's say there's 3-4 ways of doing it. Yes, one way is you use inside cladding with rock wool, or you do spray foam. The other ones is the styrofoam insulfaster. So what's your preference? Because every time you speak to someone, you get the either or. It's like golf or tennis or Mercedes or BMW. I'm not in any of the camps. I think it depends a little bit on the situation, obviously on the investment. Spray foam is slightly more expensive than you put rock wool inside, like any insulation you do in a house. But where do you come from?
I'm now doing a combination of rigid foam, like PIR, because PIR is not so vulnerable of moisture as, for example, rock wool or an EPS material. But like the Americans do and say, closed cell foam, spray foam, is actually the best for condensation. And condensation is the big problem in a container with temperature fall.
Absolutely.
What I now do is I put on the rigid PIR or XPS foam. I glue it to the inside of the corrugation steel plate. And then you have canals left. These are the tops of the trapezium form steel plate of the corrugation.
Absolutely, yeah.
These canals have to be also filled out. So I'm not spray foaming, because spray foaming gives not a fine surface for putting later on the rigid foam, but I inject the closed cell foam into these canals. And we have tested that, and then what you actually get is a good insulation that is completely filled out, and there's no possibility of air draft or something, so also no problem with condensation. This is how we insulate the inner side, and it's not everything, because when we have done this and you have your barrier with the aluminum layer that is on the PIR, when you have your barrier, then we put another wall in front of it, and this one is actually made out of metal steel framing and mineral wool, so like rock wool, because for the sound barrier, this is actually the best insulation. So we have like 40-50 millimeters of rock wool, and then after that, onto the steel plate, we have also like 80 plus 4 centimeters of spray foam. This is a package.
It's a rather thick wall, yes. So one argument is that people sort of on that side say, well, you're losing quite a lot of room.
That's true.
Right?
But if you put two against each other, then there's no problem in the inner space.
Yeah. So how about the outside? Because I've seen you, on LinkedIn, sharing a lot of insights on outside insulation, and then adding a facade, and you're doing what I would describe as is that correct? Like pull tests, Newton meter tests, or
I do also pull tests, but I do pull tests on when people say I want a brick. So I take brick slips. I'm not using a 10 centimeter
no, not a
thick
full one,
brick, but we do brick slips. These are glued on a mount plate. But you can also say, I do wood, or you could do plaster work. I call these sorts of exterior cladding, I call these variants. It doesn't matter what you use, it's what you want to pay for it. It's what the government asks you to do, but it has nothing to do with insulation because everything is on the inside. So if people say, like in Belgium, for example, they say, "We like steel," then it's steel's, as I call it, a naked body.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you get a lot of requests where people say, "Look, I like to take the box or the actual shipping container, but in the end, they don't like the look of it. It's too industrial." Or people will say, "Well, you live in a metal box or something, and this is where you come in. You can essentially provide any facade, or you can
Yes.
apply any facade." And that's the same thing we tell our clients as well, our customers, that there's absolutely no limit on what you can do and what you cannot do.
Yes.
You can leave it as it is. It's exposed. It's corten steel, so there's no rust or any. I mean, there's rust, but it takes 100 years to essentially get through.
And what also is important, cladding doesn't have to be watertight. It can also be ventilated
Absolutely, yeah.
because a container is already watertight of its own.
Absolutely. What's your view on? There's two ways. You have the ventilation holes that come with the container.
We
So
close
top
them up.
left and top right. So you would you prefer to close them?
We close them up, but what we always say, there's insulation. Good insulation is one thing, but ventilation is another thing. So every unit that is livable on the inside should go together with a climate closet, as we call it.
Mm-hmm.
It has an airco on it, it has a heater on it, and it has a ventilation box in it. So these three things, we put them in one box. It's connected to the outside. And for power, it's less than 1.5 kilowatt hours in an hour.
Yes.
So that's nothing.
Absolutely not. So look, you've been posting a lot on the happy building, the renders you're publishing at the moment of a house that is destined for, I think, the south of Andalusia or somewhere. And we've been talking about this before. Tell us a little bit more about that project.
As you know, I'm from the Netherlands, and our Dutch government, I say as an entrepreneur, is too slow in their laws. You might agree with me. So I thought, when I'm having a really good solution for the individuals, for the people, and the government is the traffic light that says this is red, we don't allow it, then you go to other countries. And this is why I came to Spain. We like to go to Spain. And I thought, we have a lot of nowadays immigrated people from Dutch and German and Belgian and English nationality. They all go to the warmer climates, but they it's in our culture. We are, as I always say, that we are like 30 years ahead of the people in the south when it comes to technical things.
Construction, you mean? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not dreaming that I would sell something like our product to a Spanish guy, because they don't know how valuable it is to go on power. What's insulation? We don't have a problem with that, so I won't pay for that. But on the other hand, we, like the northwestern people of Europe, we know how expensive energy can be in the future.
Absolutely.
So, I'm noticing that the Dutch, English, German, and Belgian people that were immigrated to, like, for example, Spain, they start their living there in sort of B&B constructions. They buy a finca with a lot of land and think, okay, I can rent some rooms to holiday people, and they immediately notice that this is not enough for living there. So they want to expand. And I said, okay, we can expand because with my container homes, we can transport. You can also look for good constructors in the neighborhood. We have the right development of installation energy, whether it's off-grid or whatever. You can put a container home, and in about a week, you can start to make some rent money out of it. And these people, these entrepreneurs abroad, are very, very interested, and they are familiar with the local governments. So it's more easy for them to get a permit. This is why I said, okay, I'm a Dutch guy, but I start my development in the Netherlands. So engineering, developing is something for us in the north, but we deliver in the south.
Absolutely.
That's how it
mentioned. That's how you start. Yes. Tell me, you do have on your website. I obviously did a bit of research. You have a range of products. So home cubes, cube complex. You call it pool cubes. I'm assuming these are pools. Roof cubes. Take us, and then you have art cube, which is the one I'm referring to now. Tell me a little bit about the configurations. What's the idea behind the different systems?
As we started to develop the art cube, we said to each other, this is also a working space for small business people. This could be also a sporting space, like outdoor sports. You have a small container that you easily could close up, and you easily could put out all the gear to make sure that the group has everything to sport with. For events, like you said, a pool cube, half container could be fixed as a swimming pool. And it has nothing to do with measurements, because when you, for example, when you take a jet stream, you can easily swim on place. So you don't need a big swimming pool. You don't need a big garden to create a swimming pool in your backyard. So you can do everything.
You have, and there's a tiny benefit in that as well. So if it is an above ground pool, you don't need the permission, or at least not in all countries. So if you put it above ground, which you can do with a container pool, and we've built pools in the past, but we did this for brand and pop-up brand activations, where we build a big 40 or cut down a 40-foot container principally by half, and put some windows or glass on the side so you could see people swimming and so on. And but there are a couple of companies out there that started doing this. But you mentioned earlier that one of your homes can be standing in days or weeks, and I'm with you, because we've got, you do 80%, 85% of pre-production in the factory, and then essentially you deliver it like a fridge and you connect it. But that's obviously super wild if you compare this with traditional build times. So how, if you talk through one of your projects, how, if you had a call today from a customer saying, I want one in the south of Spain, what's sort of your turnaround, you'd say?
As I started to publish what we can do, I also took notice of what's the term. Suppose somebody comes and says, I want to have this or this. I don't have to call any amount, but they make an order. Then I, on my own, I would have to say, oh, this would be taking for perhaps for a year. No, I search for alliances. They exactly know how I think. They are into that business. And I could easily take the order out to another firm. And I have 2 firms in Germany. I have one in Poland. I have one in Belgium. I'm starting to do one in Spain. But Spain is, what I already said, is another story, because they are not so familiar with colder climate zones. And
Sure.
so they have no value on insulation. And this is very important for us, that we can not only deliver products to warmer countries, but also to colder countries with
Absolutely.
the same.
You describe the container homes as off-grid capable, or you said somewhere nearly energy neutral. What does that look like in practice? So are we talking solar and heat pumps, rainwater connection? How far off-grid can you actually go?
For power, we take solar power from the sun. A container, a 20-foot container, can easily contain 5 solar panels on the roof. The R-Cube that I'm developing are 2 containers, so I have 10 solar panels on the roof, and I can produce in Spain power amount of approximately like 18 kilowatts per day.
Okay.
This would be enough with a good insulation. So I have actually almost no loss of heat from the inside to the outside. The power that I'm producing is enough to make sure that 2 persons in that container can easily do 24 hours. Like cooking, like showering, playing with their phones or laptops or whatever. Also a possible jacuzzi. When it comes to water, a connection with water, we have a alliance with a firm called AWG. They generate like 250 liters of water out of the atmosphere. Of course, it needs minerals. Of course, it needs to go through a ultraviolet source to make it drinkable, but it is healthier than the normal water that we tap. We can do this by generators that are like 1.5 cubic meters in volume. Of course, they stay outside. They are not noisy, but can deliver us the needable amount of water, also for showering. The only thing that we cannot provide is sewer.
Drainage, yeah.
When we have permission to build in underground, to build in a sewer tank, then there's absolutely no problem, and I can stay with my cube in the middle of nowhere. This is what we developed.
And what about nights then? I get the solar in kilowatts, but
battery
you'd use
battery
battery
supply.
storage?
Yeah. So there's always needed battery storage. So during the day, we fill up a 10 kilowatts battery so that it can provide us for power over 24 hours. I don't say that when people would go into permanent in a home like this, other than a holiday home, for example, for short stay, and also in Spain, it becomes winter. Okay, we have daylight, so the solar panels always make sure that you have power, but do you have enough power? When you have these sorts of things, you need some extra supply from the infrastructure that is possible, that would be possible to connect there. But short stay, it's not necessary.
Interesting.
And short stay, I mean like a long weekend.
So after 30 years in what I would call traditional construction, have you seen how resistant the industry could be to change? Have you come across sort of what's the biggest pushback you see? You've mentioned regulation, of course. We know Germany, people.
Yeah, people with knowledge. This is the main problem why traditional constructors say this is nothing.
As it's nothing. Why? What do you mean?
They I say it wrong, they need to stay fixed on their traditional work to earn their living. When they give in and they would say, okay, now we do it like this, then they will all fall. Because the time that is needed to make a specialist of this modular building, this time is too long. That's also our problem when we have. I also see pictures of you and your firm. You do this already a very long time, and you do this with several more people. You are mainly manufacturing for events. I would say Germany is like 18 times bigger than Holland, than the Netherlands. And it's more possible for you to make sure that you could sell enough of your event products. Here in the Netherlands, we have a few big constructors, and they are the rulers, and they are mainly traditional. So I would say it takes a long while to make sure that younger people who are more open-minded for these sorts of forms, because it's also necessary, it takes, I think, still several years to make a breakthrough here in the Netherlands. So if you have a good plan, like, for example, Containerwerk had, and you would do this in the Netherlands, and I know these people, they all fall. They all fall. They have good plans. They are not. They have a lot of people needed to build their products, like a constructor. He has also people needed for construction. So this wouldn't be different with modular buildings, but because because we can't go with the flow, we are constantly worked. There's constantly how you say that in English? They constantly work against us.
You mean yes, regulations.
If there's no go through, also for government, when there's no, because they only listen to the big constructors. If there's no go through, then we won't survive. So that is why I said I rather do development and make a good story to make people more open-minded for these things that will come in the future. Because I'm very sure traditional buildings are done.
I'll agree with you. This is maybe not done in a way, but we have a European or global housing crisis. But Europe, let's stay in Europe for a moment, and we have a huge housing shortage. And on the other hand, we have on the traditional build times, not just times, but the investment necessary to build any of those. They make them rather expensive. So obviously, on the modular side of things, you build more efficiently and effectively. So two things, quicker and cheaper on scale. And you'll see in the market is developed, modular is booming. So we have lots of little players across Europe. We have Eastern Europe is full of anything from steel frame construction, wooden frame construction.
I know.
Everyone,
it's not
70,
stoppable
50%.
anymore.
Yeah, no, it's happening. And I think you're right. One is regulations, and we Germans are really good at regulating the hell out of things. And it sounds like the Dutch government is very similar. And I mean, you have it across Europe. I mean, the Spaniards have similar there are European-driven regulations, etc. And it doesn't make it easier, but things are changing. I think one of the big things I've noticed is even, not everyone can come and hand over the cash to a modular build. So a lot of people will need to finance their build, whether that is modular or traditional. Now, a modular build is essentially seen as a removable box.
Yes, we have that's a big problem.
Right, we have this, and I don't know how you say in Dutch, but in Germany it's immobil, so the house is not mobile, right?
Yeah.
And with that, it comes, you have the ground rights, you have to buy your plot, and the plot and the house is indefinitely linked to each other. You have the certificate for the plot, you will have to have this to build a house on it. I mean, obviously, building regulations and all that stuff. If you put a box on it, it's essentially currently, and I'm not talking about the regulators, but I'm talking actually about the banks. So the banks won't be able to finance this in the same way as they do with a traditional build because it's not fixed. Which, on the other side, if you think of it, we could now start leasing plots and say, I'll have that plot for 50 years, and Germany has a lot of church ownership, so there are these 99-year leases on specific land, pretty much in every country like this. Essentially say, well, I don't really need it for 30 years because then I get old, I'm retired, and then I'll hand over the house to my kids, and they might want to live down somewhere in Switzerland. So you load the whole thing up on a trailer, and off you go, right? And then release the spot, which is a benefit, right? It's all reusable, which is a huge benefit, right? Do you think when you speak to clients of yours or people who are interested in building with you or ordering a house, what's their biggest concern? I mean, I don't want to preempt this. I've got people coming to us, and obviously there are concerns. What do you hear from them?
They are mostly skeptic in the way we do things, but more skeptic and more scared about what banks or governments will tell them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the consumer that says, okay, I don't want to live in a modular house. A customer looks at the costs and he sees several benefits, not only in creating the building, but also what are the costs, the monthly costs on, for example, power.
Mm-hmm.
Almost as expensive as a mortgage. And
Absolutely.
it's still rising. And banks, I talked to bank managers and they say, we would like to finance these sorts of plans, but we are limited.
Mm-hmm.
Limited by government. We can't finance, for example, movable homes. You know how it was on water, as people said, I want to have a living boat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There were, and I speak about approximately 15, 20 years ago, but also at that time, there were actually almost no banks that would finance a living boat because it was
absolutely.
also movable. And this is a very big problem that concerns most customers.
And you'd have a lot, thinking of Amsterdam, there's the barges, traditional, I know from
When
London,
our
houseboats.
government would change this regulation, that it skips the definition of movable home,
Mm-hmm.
I think the market was open.
Yeah. So on that one, what would you think is, if container housing or modular homes, how it is perceived and regulated in Europe at the moment? What if there was anything you could change about this? What would be the first one you would change?
This regulation.
So the
Because
building
now,
regulation for
yeah,
ensure that it can be financed, right?
exactly. It should be, it has to be financed for like a regular mortgage for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, then there will be no customer that says, I want to buy your product.
Yeah, I
Because
think
they
I'm
are,
with you on that one. It's
yeah.
a big risk to take for customers, and we do get a lot of requests for container homes. Mainly, the idea of off grid, or somebody has a lake property, or at least a plot. With the container manufacturers in the east of Berlin, so in Brandenburg, you do still have from the old times these lake properties or plots where people bought them 20, 30 years ago. I don't think you can afford one, like the commoner, getting one of these plots. But we do get requests of people who own those, and they say that they'd love to have a container style home next to the lake, which is I mean, me personally, that's why I'm running this podcast, and we live containers. Our building, our workshop is built from containers, and it has a studio apartment up in the top, which is it's all, and it's incredible. And I do like the outside design of containers as well. Obviously, you gotta paint them up a little bit and make them look good. I don't personally like to work with old ones.
That's no problem. Yep. That's a taste.
But then, like you do, you can you put any facade on it, and it's plenty of options there. Yeah. So if you did you say you had your own house built from containers, or did I misunderstand that at the beginning?
No, not my own, but I'm now working on my own home building for Spain. This is my second home for Spain. I have a very small dream, Lars, and that is, what if I could create a small community for, let's say, the older people that are now selling their homes, and because and with their leftover money, they buy a second home, like a holiday home in a abroad country. What if I could create a small community, but it also could be in the Netherlands, and you could call that nursing homes. People who live small, who sell their houses to younger people with children that actually need homes, they go a little bit smaller, compact, and take care for each other. And there's, of course, also professional help if this is needed. This is my dream that I would create, and if it's a holiday place or a structural place in the Netherlands, it doesn't matter, but a small community, let's say like 5, 6 really good nursing homes where 2 senior people can live their life.
On a smaller.
This was always my dream to create this, and I'm now building this for own as a holiday home to let people, but also let responsible constructors of the government, of City Hall, to let them see what we are building. So I'm not showing them a fully mounted picture. No, I'm showing them the technical part. How is the installation done? How we do it with ventilation? Because what's in it, only the customer likes what floor you take, or what wall you take, or which kitchen you take. This is for me not interesting. The people who have to think about this, who have to become open-minded, are actually the government people. They have to make sure that the traffic light goes from red to green.
To green.
And then
tell me a bit. You've mentioned the house in Spain, and I've seen. Well, obviously, this is a mostly podcast verbal recording, so we will put some links in the description to your website, etc. But I've seen the renders of your the happy building which you're about to build in Spain.
Yeah.
Can you give us a sort of a little bit of a visual description? So if somebody listens to this, how does it look? How did you build it? How big is it? What does it look like?
First of all, as a naked body, it looks like two formal shipping containers in the right color that are built together. If you want a particular roof on it, you can get a particular roof. That's no problem, because I call that like cladding also a variant. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was more thinking of yours. It has like your little dream house, not what I can order, but what you're building for Spain.
I'm building that one. My renders are exactly the holiday cube I'm building for my own. It has big windows in it. It has a good climate installation in it. It looks actually like a very good hotel boutique sleeping room for 2 persons, with a good bed, a good shower, with a full option kitchen in it. These are the main things that are necessary. It has a porch on it on the front. So, because Spain is outdoor living, so you can take a fold glass wall, you can put it all open, and you have you are open with the nature. You have a porch in front of it, like 4.5 meters wide. You have sunscreen above it. You have 2 lying beds, and you can enjoy the whole environment. And my view is actually a panoramic view to see the sea and some mountains. This is what is actually holiday for me.
Fantastic. It sounds really, really good. Etienne, thank you so much. It's been a genuinely fascinating conversation with you. I love as I said, I've seen the renders. I love what you built, and also the inside in terms of the insulation. I love the philosophy. Standardize the structure, and then you can vary everything else you build inside and outside, whatever you like. And I think I've learned now it's a simple idea, and we're both sort of on the same ship here, but it's hard to execute in a very regulatory environment. But you've already sort of cracked a lot of the solutions for that, and I wish you all the best for the Spain development. That sounds really, really
Thank
interesting.
you very much.
Have you got times already, and when what's your time plan for that?
Well, we already agreed with a B&B entrepreneur in the south of Spain. He would like to have my module as a demonstration cube. He has the land for it. So what we now agreed is that spring next year, my cube will go over there, and he will start his agency with the cube.
Super.
For the coming 2 years, to make more B&B owners enthusiastic about this prototype. It's actually like the Tesla car has begun.
Yes. Well, I wish you, judging by the news, that was rather successful what Mr. Musk been doing. He's just entered
I think
the Trillionaires Club, which is a club of one at the moment, as far as I understand it. But yeah, so for anyone who wants to learn more about Etienne and Happy Building, there is obviously description in the website description, etc. in the description of the podcast, but it's happybuilding.nl. That's correct. Huh?
Yes,
But I'll link everything in the show notes. Fantastic. And yeah, so if you're considering container home, we've sort of focused more on, as you said, Etienne, on the event and branding part of Container Build. So if you are interested in container homes, there's Etienne to be contacted. As I said, I'll leave all the details in the show notes. Etienne, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I thank you, Lars.
Thanks for listening to Boxed and More, the podcast about container conversions, modular architecture, and everything in between. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and share it with someone who might like it too. See you in the next one. Trust me, it's worth it.